Mackenzie knows he has to act quickly but strategically. Every second he hesitates puts Jamie in more danger. He studies the guards carefully, noticing their patterns and movements. Two of them are engaged in a conversation, while the third stands by the door, distracted. Mac decides to strike while the odds are slightly in his favor. He moves silently, taking out the guard by the door first with a swift, calculated blow. The noise alerts the other two, and chaos erupts. Mac acts instinctively, using the element of surprise to his advantage. A brief but intense fight ensues with Mac overpowering the guards one by one. His adrenaline surges as he finally reaches Jamie, untying her restraints. Though shaken, Jamie looks relieved to see him. Mac reassures her, but they both know they aren't out of danger yet. The hardest part is still ahead, escaping the warehouse alive. With Jamie freed, Mackenzie quickly assesses their situation. The noise from the fight has drawn attention, and the sound of hurried footsteps echoes through the warehouse. Mac knows they don't have much time. He takes Jamie's hand, guiding her through the maze of crates and machinery, keeping low to avoid detection. Jamie, though shaken, follows his lead, her fear replaced by trust in Mac's abilities. As they near the exit, they hear voices approaching fast. Mac finds cover and motions for Jamie to stay quiet. The tension is unbearable as Tony's men search the area, their flashlights sweeping through the darkness. Mac waits for the right moment and uses his knowledge of the warehouse to lead Jamie toward another exit. Each step feels like a gamble, but Mac's quick thinking and calm under pressure give them a fighting chance. Escape is within reach, but danger is still close behind. Mackenzie and Jamie move swiftly toward the exit, but their escape is far from secure. The tension is palpable as Mac keeps one eye on the path ahead and the other on the shadows, where Tony's men could appear at any moment. They reach a narrow alley outside the warehouse, but the night is still far from safe. Mac knows they can't stop, yet they need to put distance between themselves and the men who'll be searching for them. As they make their way through the alley, Mac's mind races. He checks his phone for any messages or calls, but there's nothing. He silently curses, knowing they're on their own for now. A sound behind them makes Mac turn sharply, his heart leaping in his chest. He's ready to fight if necessary, but it's only a stray cat scurrying past. Relieved but still on edge, Mac keeps moving, keeping Jamie close. Mackenzie and Jamie continue to move through the shadows, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the quiet night. The danger is still very real, and Mac's instincts are on high alert. They keep a steady pace, but Mac knows they need to get out of the area before Tony's men catch up. He scans the surroundings, looking for an escape route, his mind constantly calculating the best course of action. They reach a crossroads where Mac considers their options. To the left is a quieter route, but it's also more exposed, while to the right leads toward a busier street, where they could blend in with the crowd. After a moment of hesitation, Mac decides on the safer route and guides Jamie down the quieter path. Every corner they turn feels like a gamble, and the weight of the situation presses down on them. But Mac's determination to keep Jamie safe never wavers, and with each step, they move closer to freedom. Mackenzie and Jamie continue to move through the night, their steps quick and purposeful as they try to put more distance between themselves and the warehouse. The quiet alley eventually opens up to a wider street, but Mac stays alert, scanning for any sign of Tony's men. He keeps a firm grip on Jamie's hand, reassuring her with quiet words as they blend into the sparse crowd on the street. Suddenly, a car slows near them, and Mac tenses, fearing it could be one of Tony's men. But as it passes, he recognizes the driver. It's a contact he knows, someone who can help. Without wasting time, Mac signals for Jamie to get in. The car speeds off, and they take a moment to breathe, but Mac's mind is still racing. He knows they haven't won yet. Tony won't stop until he gets Jamie back. But for now, they're safe, and Mac's focus shifts to keeping it that way. Mackenzie and Jamie sit quietly in the back of the car, their eyes flicking between the dark road ahead and the rearview mirror. The brief moment of safety is fleeting, as Mac knows they can't stay hidden for long. Jamie is still shaken, but her trust in Mac is clear as she stays close, her grip on his hand firm. Mac focuses on the road, thinking ahead, planning their next move carefully. As the car speeds through the quiet streets, Mac's mind races with questions. Who can he trust now? How far will Tony go to get Jamie back? The risks are higher than ever, but Mac knows they're not out of the woods yet. He needs to find a way to disappear, to give them both a fighting chance. Every move has to be calculated, and every decision could make the difference between life and death. The tension builds again as Mac prepares for what lies ahead, knowing the real battle is only just beginning. Mac, Mackenzie, and Jamie finally arrive at a safe house, a secluded cabin that Mac's trusted contact had prepared for moments like this. It's far from luxurious, but it offers a much-needed sense of security. As the car pulls up, Mac keeps watch, ensuring no one is tailing them. He's alert, knowing that Tony's men will be relentless, and this temporary refuge won't hold forever. Inside the cabin, the air feels heavy with tension. Mac locks the doors and checks the windows, ensuring they're secure. Jamie, though exhausted, seems to relax a little. She's safe for now, but the fear in her eyes tells Mac that the danger isn't over. He sits beside her, his mind already working on the next steps. They need to plan their next move carefully. The more time they spend here, the greater the risk of being discovered. But for now, it's a brief respite in a war that's far from won. Mac Mackenzie spends a restless night in the safe house, his mind never fully at ease. He knows the calm is only temporary. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside the cabin keeps him on edge. Jamie is asleep, but Mac can't afford to relax. Tony's men could be closing in, and time is running out. He spends the night planning, running through different scenarios in his mind. What's the best escape route? Where can they go next? The weight of the decision is crushing, but Mac remains focused, determined to keep Jamie safe. At dawn, Mac wakes Jamie gently, alerting her that they need to leave. He's already packed what little they have and is ready to move out at a moment's notice. The reality of their situation sets in, and the two of them prepare to leave the cabin. Mac takes one last look around to make sure they aren't being watched. He knows that this part of their journey is far from over, and that every step they take from here on out could lead to more danger. Mac, Mackenzie, and Jamie set off from the safe house early in the morning, their eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. Every movement feels like a potential threat, but Mac remains focused. He knows they can't afford to stay in one place for too long. Jamie, although tired, stays close, trusting Mac's lead. They move quickly but carefully, sticking to less crowded areas to avoid being noticed. Mac's mind is already working on their next move. He contacts a few trusted people, trying to arrange a safer location for them. Every decision is calculated, as he knows they're running out of options. They need to keep moving, but Mac also understands that Jamie's safety is his priority. The constant threat of being followed keeps him on edge, and he makes sure to take extra precautions, double-checking everything, from the car to their route. Mac, Mackenzie, and Jamie drive through quiet streets, each mile feeling like it brings them closer to safety, yet Mac's anxiety doesn't fade. The car's interior is filled with tension as Mac navigates the roads with precision, his eyes darting from the rearview mirror to the side windows, constantly on the lookout for any signs of pursuit. They can't afford to make any mistakes, not now. As they approach a new location, Mac pulls over to check their surroundings. The area seems deserted, but Mac knows better than to trust appearances. He motions for Jamie to stay in the car while he steps out for a brief moment, ensuring they aren't being watched. His instincts scream that they're still in danger, but he's not willing to take unnecessary risks. After making sure the coast is clear, he returns to the car and continues driving, though the nagging feeling that they're not out of danger lingers. Mac, Mackenzie, and Jamie continue on their journey, the quiet hum of the car's engine filling the silence between them. Despite the progress they've made, Mac can't shake the feeling that they're being watched. His sharp instincts remain on high alert, and he takes every precaution to avoid detection. The plan is simple: get to a new location, lay low for a while, and then figure out their next move. But Mac knows that Tony's men won't stop looking for them. They stop at a small diner, a place that Mac trusts but remains cautious about. He asks Jamie to stay inside while he checks the perimeter. He watches the comings and goings of the few patrons and takes note of any suspicious activity. Everything seems quiet, but Mac can never be too sure. He walks back to the car, his eyes scanning the street one last time before he heads inside. He has to be sure their escape remains secure, even in the smallest details. Mac, Mackenzie, and Jamie leave the diner, their senses heightened, both aware of the tension in the air. After a quick meal, Mac feels more confident, but he's still not ready to let his guard down. They continue driving, and Mac keeps a steady hand on the wheel. Despite the calm, he remains vigilant, scanning for any signs of trouble. The road ahead seems endless, but Mac knows that no matter how far they go, they're still in danger as long as Tony's men are hunting them. As the sun sets, Mac finds an old motel on the outskirts of town. It's quiet and isolated, perfect for a brief rest. He checks in under a false name, always careful to avoid leaving any trace. Inside the room, The weight of the day finally begins to take its toll on Jamie, and she falls into an exhausted sleep. But Mac doesn't relax. He remains wide awake, his mind racing with plans and contingencies, always thinking ahead. Mac Mackenzie sits by the motel room window, his sharp eyes fixed on the parking lot below. The soft snores from Jamie remind him of the heavy responsibility on his shoulders. Every small sound outside the creak of a door, the crunch of gravel makes his pulse quicken. He knows the men hunting them are ruthless, and the possibility of being discovered lingers in his mind. Unable to shake his unease, Mac reviews his options. He pulls out a burner phone and makes a few discreet calls, hoping to gather intel on Tony's movements. One of his contacts confirms Mac's worst fears: Tony's men are closer than he thought. The news hits him hard, but it also fuels his determination. Mac decides they need to leave before dawn, even if it means abandoning the small comfort they've found. He quietly begins packing, careful not to wake Jamie. The battle isn't over, and Mac knows they have to stay ahead. Before the first light of dawn, Mac Mackenzie wakes Jamie and quietly explains that they need to leave immediately. Though groggy and confused, Jamie doesn't question him, trusting his judgment. Mac has already packed their belongings and scoped out the parking lot for any signs of danger. The motel is still eerily silent, but Mac's instincts tell him not to linger. They slip out of the room, moving cautiously to their car. Mac keeps his hand close to his concealed weapon, ready for anything. As they drive away, the tension remains high, with Mac taking several detours to ensure they aren't being followed. His mind churns with plans, considering where they could go next that would provide even a sliver of safety. Meanwhile, Jamie's quiet presence beside him keeps him grounded. Mac knows he's fighting not just for his own survival but for hers as well, and that realization strengthens his resolve. As Mac Mackenzie and Jamie drive further into the countryside, the isolation offers a small sense of relief, but Mac remains tense. The narrow roads and tall trees around them feel both protective and claustrophobic. Jamie, sensing Mac's unease, tries to start a conversation, but Max focuses on the road and his surroundings. He knows they're not in the clear yet. Suddenly, Mac notices a car that seems to be following them. He doesn't mention it to Jamie but starts taking random turns, testing to see if the car is truly on their tail. His heart races when the car matches their moves. Mac's sharp instincts kick in, and he quickly devises a plan to shake their pursuer. He pushes the car's speed, weaving through back roads and using every shortcut he knows. The chase is tense, with Mac's calm demeanor hiding the storm of thoughts racing through his mind. Jamie clings to her seat, her fear evident, but she trusts Mac to get them out safely. Mac Mackenzie's mind is racing as he speeds through the back roads, trying to lose the car trailing them. Jamie clutches her seat, her face pale with fear, but she says nothing, trusting Mac's judgment. Mac pushes the car to its limits, taking sharp turns and weaving through narrow paths. His experience with high-pressure situations becomes clear as he uses the terrain to his advantage, forcing the pursuing car to struggle to keep up. Finally, Mac spots an opportunity, a sharp curve leading into a densely wooded area. He takes the turn abruptly and kills the car's lights, guiding the vehicle off the road and into the cover of the trees. Both he and Jamie hold their breath as the pursuing car roars past them, oblivious to where they've gone. Mac waits several tense minutes before restarting the engine and continuing down an alternate route. The close call only strengthens his resolve, but he knows the danger is far from over. After narrowly escaping their pursuers, Mac Mackenzie drives cautiously through the back roads, his senses still heightened. The adrenaline from the chase lingers, but Mac's focus doesn't waver. Jamie remains quiet, her trust in Mac unwavering despite the fear in her eyes. Mac takes several unexpected turns, ensuring they aren't being followed again. He knows they need to find another temporary hiding spot to regroup. Eventually, Mac spots a small, run-down gas station. It's isolated enough to not attract attention but still functional. He pulls in and parks at the edge of the lot. Leaving Jamie in the car, he goes inside to buy supplies and ask about the surrounding area. The attendant, a grizzled old man, barely looks up as Mac questions him. Mac's sharp eyes scan the place for any signs of trouble. Satisfied, he heads back to the car, knowing they'll need to keep moving before the night is over. After leaving the gas station, Mac Mackenzie drives deeper into the countryside, staying off major roads to avoid drawing attention. The quiet night seems to stretch endlessly, but Mac's mind is alert, calculating their next move. He glances at Jamie, who looks exhausted yet determined. Her trust in him weighs heavily on Mac, pushing him to stay one step ahead of the danger lurking behind them. Mac eventually finds a secluded rest area, a desolate spot surrounded by trees. He decides they can pause here for a short time to gather their thoughts. Turning off the engine, he listens to the silence around them, alert for any unusual sounds. Jamie asks softly if they're safe, and Mac reassures her, though he doesn't fully believe it himself. As they sit in the car, Mac considers their dwindling options, knowing that time is running out. The night feels like a brief calm before the storm. Mac Mackenzie sits quietly in the driver's seat, his sharp eyes scanning the darkened surroundings. The rest area is eerily silent, but he knows better than to trust the calm. Jamie stirs slightly in her seat, her exhaustion evident, but she doesn't complain. Mac's mind races with possible next steps. He's been improvising so far, but the walls are closing in, and he knows they need a real plan if they're going to survive. As he considers their options, a noise from the woods catches his attention. It's faint, but enough to make Mac grip the handle of his gun. He whispers to Jamie to stay still, his voice steady despite the tension. Minutes pass like hours, but the noise doesn't return. Mac knows it could have been nothing or it could mean they've been found. Either way, he decides they can't stay here any longer. Starting the car, he moves carefully back onto the road, his senses heightened, ready for whatever comes next. As Mac Mackenzie drives through the dark and empty roads, he can feel the weight of the night pressing down on him. The moonlight barely cuts through the dense forest surrounding them, adding to the unease. Jamie remains quiet, sensing the tension in Mac. He glances at her briefly, her pale face reminding him why he cannot afford to fail. Every mile feels like a small victory, but Mac knows they aren't in the clear yet. He pulls over at a fork in the road, unsure of which path to take. Consulting the map in his head, he debates between a quicker route through the main highway or sticking to the back roads where they're less likely to be spotted. After a moment, he chooses the safer option and continues along the winding rural roads. Mac can't shake the feeling that danger is close, but he keeps moving forward, trusting his instincts to guide them through the night. Mac Mackenzie keeps his focus on the dark road ahead, every turn bringing a fresh wave of tension. His grip on the steering wheel is tight, his mind scanning for any signs of danger. Jamie breaks the silence, her voice low and uncertain, asking if they'll ever find a way out of this mess. Mac reassures her with a calm confidence he doesn't entirely feel, telling her that they'll be safe as long as they stay ahead of whoever is after them. As they drive, Mac spots a faint light in the distance. Slowing the car, he approaches cautiously, realizing it's an old farmhouse with a single light on in the window. He considers stopping to ask for help but decides against it. Trusting strangers isn't an option right now. Instead, he keeps driving, sticking to the shadows and the empty roads. Jamie watches him silently, sensing his unease but not pressing him further. The weight of their predicament hangs heavily between them as the road stretches endlessly